Hi, folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast, Season 13, Episode 5. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Pete Matthew, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. Here we are once again. Great to have you with me. The days of a job for life are long gone, even for me, right? And I'm unfortunately too old to call myself a millennial. Now, more than ever, the employment environment is more fluid than it's ever been before. And once again, I think this provides both challenges and opportunities for the target listeners to this season, which basically are the millennials and anybody really getting started on their personal finance journey. So we're going to be talking about a challenging job market today, the fourth of our 6 challenges facing millennials. As usual, after the main body of the show, I'll read a review that somebody's kindly left for me, announce what we're going to be talking about next time, a couple of announcements to make as well, so stay tuned for those. But before all that, remember, this podcast is brought to you with the help of my friends at 7 Investment Management. They've been helping me out here for ages, since the spring of 2011, and I'm super grateful to them for doing so. Please do check out what they're up to. They're at 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. Check them out. So, a more, shall we say, a fluid job market. That's the reality in 2019. And I think it's likely to remain so probably forever, certainly for some time. Fact is, it's a very different world to the one that your grandparents worked in. The internet has changed everything, including the workplace environment, perhaps even more radically than the Industrial Revolution did in the 19th century. And really, we're only just getting started. I mean, the modern internet is what, 23 years old, if you count that back to the birth of Internet Explorer in 1995 with Windows 95. Okay, most folks listening to this won't remember that, but I do. And it was revolutionary, and it gave ordinary people access to the internet properly for the first time. So, you know, we're just getting started with this stuff. 23 years into the biggest revolution since the Industrial Revolution, we're very much getting started. We have no idea yet what the internet will fully mean for the world of work, as well as everything else. So, bear in mind this different job market. Let's look at what you need to know and what you need to do to navigate the current world of work. Remember, notes and links, all that good stuff, they're at the show notes for today's episode. That's meaningfulmoney.tv/MF5 for Millennial Finance Episode 5. meaningfulmoney.tv/MF5. Let's have a look at what you need to know first. Oh, see, press the button. It was a little bit delayed. Never mind. First thing you need to know, an economic downturn will come eventually. Wow, that's a cheery start. Right? An economic downturn will come eventually. If you were born after 1990, and that would put you in the sort of latter half of the millennial demographic, you have never known what it's like to experience a severe economic decline. The financial crisis of 2008 was a big deal, right? Arguably the worst financial conditions since the Great Depression of the early 1930s. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the developed world really teetered on the brink of financial Armageddon. We weren't that far away from like cash machines not working and having to grow carrots in your back garden to trade with your next door neighbor's chicken, right? So major household name banks went bust. They had people queuing around the block to take out their money because they didn't trust them anymore. That's a big deal. When people don't trust the financial system, we got a problem. The largest insurance company in the world, AIG, essentially went under. If you want some insight into just how bad things were, check out a film called The Big Short. Absolutely superb film, chilling, but really, really interesting. Governments had to bail out the banks with just unimaginably enormous sums of money, which they had to print, essentially. They had to create money to get us out of the mess. Interest rates were slashed as well. Those measures, essentially, you can think of them as life support for the economy. The economy went into intensive care. Cheap interest rates and loads of freshly minted money was the drugs keeping the economy alive. Since then, those same measures have propped up the economy to no small degree, and to the point where really we're in danger of being entirely reliant on that support, much as a drug addict is reliant on his methadone prescription. More recently, governments and central banks have started moves to withdraw that medication slowly by raising interest rates just a little bit, right? Just a little bit, reducing and even dialing back the inflows of money into the system. That's got to be done really careful so as not to unbalance the economy, right? I mention all this so that you understand the context for today's job market. Right now, things are pretty benign. And when you've got a benign economy and job market, then there's loads of innovation, people trying different stuff. The benign environment we're in now won't last forever. Okay, and that makes it more important than ever, I think, that you understand the implications of what might happen to your job or your business when the inevitable economic downturn comes. Economics comes in cycles. It will have a downturn before too long. For the record, I don't think that a recession is imminent, recording this in early 2019. Most of the people I respect and listen to think that we're at least 18 months to 2 years from the next recession, right? But it will happen eventually, just facts, right? So now on to more cheery subjects. I thought I'd get that out of the way first at the top of the show. Second thing you need to know is that job hopping is declining. Millennials, I think, have a bad rep for lots of things, and I said right at the start of the season, I don't buy a lot of the grief, really, that millennials get. I think millennial bashing, for the sake of it, is just lazy, just like any generalization is lazy. But one thing they've particularly come under fire for is being a bit flaky, at work specifically. And I put a link in the show notes to a brilliant YouTube video, I imagine many of you have seen it, which parodies this. And it's this sort of middle-aged guy interviewing a sort of young millennial girl for a job, and she can't sort of tear her eyes away from her phone. Very, very funny. I think it's a parody. I'm sure it's a parody. Yes, it is. But it makes me laugh every time I see it. So link in the notes to that. But you know the sort of thing, demanding flexi hours, being too busy on Snapchat to get any real work done, that kind of thing. And it's all rubbish, of course. I don't believe any of that. But millennials do have a reputation for job hopping, always looking for a better or just a different job, right? But it turns out that that's actually not true in real life, or at least not more recently it isn't. I read an article recently that suggested that job hopping is down by a third since the financial crisis. So in other words, more millennial workers are now staying in their jobs for longer than they were 10 years ago. I think it's a good opportunity for me, this, to highlight what I think is one of the single best traits of this generation, namely that you want and expect your life to be meaningful. Okay, it's like I saw that coming when I named this podcast, right? You know what I mean? Millennials would rather work for a company which has goals and values that align with their own than for a big corporate with no sense of social responsibility. And they're prepared to change jobs if it becomes apparent that there's a conflict in this regard. And I love this. I love the fact that millennials want to align their work with their beliefs and the things that are important to them. It gives me great hope for the future of this country, for the economy, and for the planet. Okay, hopefully we'll be able to stop back from the brink of destroying all those things, and we're depending on the next generation to make things better for us, really. Intelligent employers, I think, would do very well to harness the passion that comes with the millennial employees. They need to listen to their younger employees. Certainly, I'm trying to do that here. And then make changes as a result of what they hear. Really important, I think. I could get on a soapbox here, but I'm going to sort of gently step off it, move on to the next point. But suffice to say for now, the accusations towards millennials that they don't have any staying power at work, that's looking increasingly inaccurate. Third thing we need to know is that lack of job security affects benefits. Sounds obvious, really. All that said about more job staying power with the millennial workers, it is a fact that employers tend to treat their employees differently these days than they did a generation or two ago. In a booming job market, right now in the UK, we're enjoying record low unemployment. And in that kind of scenario, contracts can be looser. Benefits don't need to be as attractive, arguably, to retain employees. In short, employers don't have to do as much for their staff as they used to. I think this is most clearly seen in the decline of final salary or defined benefit pension schemes. These pretty much are only found now in the public sector, where, of course, they're backed by the Treasury, who can just print more money if they need it. Almost all private sector DB schemes are now either closed altogether or certainly closed to new members. Auto-enrollment into pensions, that's undeniably a good thing, but it has enabled employers to kind of opt for a lowest common denominator pension scheme, all right, rather than putting in place a really great scheme and spending time putting in a great incentive for their employees to save. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with like the Nest scheme and others like it, and certainly any pension plan is better than having none at all, but it feels to me like many employers have just kind of ticked the box once the scheme is in place and just left it to that. I've also read that it's likely now that many people will pursue 5 different careers in their working lifetime. Not jobs, careers, right? So that's a big deal. I'm on my 2nd career, and probably my last one, I imagine. My first one was a manager for McDonald's. Yeah, is it really a career? Yes, of course it is. Great company to work for, actually. So I'm on my 2nd career. Fast food management being the first, financial planning being the second, and this is my 6th job since I left university. When I dropped out at age 20, I had 5 jobs in the first 10 years, and I've been in this one for 14, okay? That makes me old, I think, officially. So if the new norm is to have 5 careers on average, how many jobs does that entail? And what's that going to mean for the accumulation of benefits and pension benefits, that is, long-term savings? Having many jobs is likely to mean many smaller pension pots, which needs to be maybe tidied up or certainly kept on top of, maybe consolidated over time. I think it's probably too early to tell what the impact of all this might be. For those retiring now, the baby boomers, they've often got great final salary pension benefits. Even in my generation, Generation X, many of us have still got great pension benefits. So I think it's going to take 30 years or more yet until we really see the first millennials retiring and we can really understand how the modern job market has affected retirement. As I've said in the past, I think retirement as a concept is going to change, but this probably will be one of the factors that changes it. Last thing you need to know is that it's up to you now more than ever. We need to understand that, okay? It's been a recurring theme through this season. Your financial future is down to you. Some things I think are definitely stacked against millennials. I think a more fluid job market is definitely one of those. But as we're going to see shortly, it also presents some opportunities. As ever, though, your financial future is entirely in your own hands. Certainly, there's no generous employer prepared to pay you an index pension for life from age 65 onwards and continue paying it to your spouse or your partner if you die first. Those days are gone. It's going to be up to you to keep an eye on your pension provision and on your short-term financial security as well, in case you're not able to work for whatever reason, because you're sick, have an accident, mental health issues or whatever. It's up to you to consider these things and put measures in place to protect for them. Now, you know this, right? But it does bear repeating. You are on your own. No one cares about your financial security more than you do, right? So in light of that, let's have a look at what you need to do. First thing you need to do, or at least consider doing, is to diversify your income, because that's one way to ensure some kind of financial stability. In the same way as when you're investing, you have investing lots of kinds of assets, lots of different kinds of stuff, and that's good for reducing investment risk. Having multiple sources of income reduces your dependence on any one source, right? Most of us have got a main income, of course, right? Our main job. But it seems to be increasingly the case that people have so-called side hustles, right? So these might be second jobs or hobbies, which also pay you an income. Maybe a fully fledged business on the side, okay? I've read of something in the research for this season, something called the portfolio life, which I quite like the idea of. There's a really good podcast episode by a guy called Jeff Goins, who I've had an eye on for a while. He's a writer. I'll put a link to that in the notes, of course. A portfolio life is simply a multifaceted life. And in this case, we're talking about a life maybe with multiple streams of income. Many of you listening to this also listen to the Property Podcast with Rob and Rob, and many of you are buying buy-to-let investment portfolios as an alternative stream of income. Last season, season 12, I talked to several of my friends who are building businesses, mostly online. Some cases, those businesses started out as side hustles, bits of ways of earning money on the side, and then became the main income stream. I suppose I'm a reasonable example of the portfolio life, really. Jackson's here, where I'm standing recording this, is my main business, and it's my main income stream. Meaningful Money, though, also provides an income. I occasionally create videos for other people, and I earn money that way. I mentor a younger advisor. I get paid for that. I write articles for industry publications and get paid for that. My sister is another example. She works as a carer for adults with learning difficulties. but she's incredibly creative. So she produces amazing greetings cards and decorations and stuff, and she sells them periodically at craft fairs. She's probably not going to retire on that money, but, it's extra income for her. My big brother, he's a social worker. He does some days employed for local authority, consulting with them, and the other days he's freelance, doing his own stuff, doing training. He's written a book, he has a blog, all that sort of stuff. Multiple streams of income, a portfolio life. So maybe there's a way that you can do that. Maybe you can diversify your income by considering some of those options. Diversify your income. That's the first thing you need to do. Second thing is to hustle like your future depends on it, right? Because it does, really. Depending on your view on this whole subject, you might be already enjoying the portfolio income life. I know many of you listening to this either are doing that, for instance, by buying buy-to-let properties, and certainly many of you that haven't done that yet are aspiring to that. So you might already be doing it, but you might be excited about the prospect of having multiple incomes, or maybe you just think it sounds exhausting, right? Or both, maybe. There is no doubt that enjoying the benefits of a sort of multiple income stream life takes a lot of work, and there's probably not going to be a lot of time for binge watching box sets on Netflix if you're going to do this. Now, we all need to crash out now and again, of course, but if you're a little bit too keen on relaxation, then this is not going to come easy to you. Many of you will know that one of my biggest heroes and influences is Gary Vaynerchuk, and it was his book, Crush It, that got me started with this whole Meaningful Money project. And Gary is all about the hustle. I mean, it's his calling card, really. He works crazy long days, advocates working very hard and very fast. He's obviously got an extremely understanding wife because he's got 2 kids. But, he's a gazillionaire, so, imagine that has its merits as well. I think he's a lot more intelligent and balanced about the whole hustle thing and now than he was in his sort of 20s and 30s, early 30s when I first started listening to him. He's now in his early 40s. He's born the same year as me, actually. And he's definitely more sort of balanced and measured about his messaging about hustling these days. But other business gurus just take it even further, and we can definitely feel the pressure to sort of work until we drop. I actually don't buy into that, and I don't think you should either. I'm all for working hard, but I also believe in balance. And in order to be effective, we need to be well rested. I think it's better to work a 10-hour day efficiently and productively than work for 14 hours, but the last 4 of those are just on autopilot and not really being at our best. So you are going to need to hustle. It's going to take hard work to diversify your income streams and reduce your dependence on maybe a more challenging job market, all right? But it doesn't have to be stupid. Third thing you can consider doing is to design your own life. And as ever, it comes down to being intentional and not passive about the life you want to lead. I figure that if you're listening to this, you're looking to improve your financial situation. And if so, you're going to have to work at it, like I just said. But you can work at it intentionally. So why not sit down and design your ideal working life? That could take into account having some meaning in your career choices and working for or running a company which aligns with your own values. It should certainly include designing your ideal income flows, both in terms of the amount and the sources of income. I had a meeting recently with a client who told me that he wants his various sources of income to add up to £20,000 a month, right? Now, for many of you listening, that's a pie-in-the-sky figure. But the point is that my client is designing his life to make that possible. He's set that goal, and he's doing what he can to make that possible. He has a good job, okay? But that provides a fraction of what his goal income is. He's investing in property and other assets to produce that desired income level one day. He started with his goal, like we talked about last week, and worked back from that to see what he needed to do now to achieve that. He knows it's not going to happen overnight. He's actually set a time frame for it, and he's constantly moving towards that. Maybe you could do the same. Maybe you decide that an extra £500 per month would be transformational. I mean, it would be for most of us. Think about what you could do with that kind of money. Certainly, you could enjoy some more treats and luxuries than you do now. More importantly, arguably, you could accelerate your wealth building efforts, secure your financial future more quickly. If you have a mortgage, you could overpay it, saving interest and cutting a chunk off your term. You could maybe pay off your student loans very quickly, freeing up more income to build wealth into the future. So imagine what that could do. How might you achieve it, though? How might you achieve an extra 500 quid a month? Well, I don't know, loads of ways. Maybe if you like dogs, you could set up an evening dog walking business. Or if you happen to be bilingual, you could teach a class or offer one-on-one tuition. You could start a YouTube to help other people learn the language. You can buy stuff wholesale and then resell them on Amazon or eBay. There's a million courses and videos on YouTube to help you do that. You could set up a podcast talking about your subject of expertise. Know anybody that's done that? You can build an audience and maybe attract sponsors and do it that way. There is no limit to the options available to you when designing your own life. You can find a way to work around most limitations, right? I know if you're working shifts, it's going to be more challenging than if you're working 9 to 5, but more challenging doesn't equal insurmountable. You have to find a way. So start with the goal and work back to determine how you're going to achieve it. Start small and build it up. Quick wins are always very encouraging. Final thing you need to do is to prioritize self-reliance, all right? So, you can address the challenges of this more fluid employment situation by taking responsibility and control of your own financial situation. Self-reliance, in other words. Remember, nobody cares more about your financial situation than you do. The economy certainly doesn't care at all. Your employer, if you're working for a big corporate, they care more about their shareholders than about you. So you are on your own, so you're going to need to act like it. You absolutely must have an emergency fund, right? That's a sum of between 3 and 6 months living expenses held in an accessible bank account and not touched, right? It might take you a while to build this up, but once it's in place, you are in a way better place to weather a period of unemployment maybe, or perhaps taking a pay cut while you switch careers to something that's more aligned with your values. Always be sure to pay yourself first. Prioritize the reduction of bad debt, that's credit cards, store cards, personal loans and overdrafts. Get rid of those as quickly as you can. And once you are free of those, build up your emergency fund and then start to turn your mind to longer term savings. You might come across something called unemployment insurance. Very often that's bundled together with accident and sickness cover in a product called ASU, accident, sickness and unemployment. It pays out for a fixed amount, usually for a short term, maybe 12 months. And if you can't work for any of those 3 reasons, accident, sickness or unemployment. I used to sell this actually when I first became a financial advisor and was arranging mortgages in South Wales, and I cringe a little bit to think of it now because ASU cover is expensive, notoriously difficult to claim on. I think it's far better to protect against those outcomes, being unable to work due to accident, sickness or unemployment. If you can protect against those with a solid emergency fund, which will protect you against short-term unemployment, and then a decent income protection insurance, which will provide cover for long-term inability to work due to accident or illness. Those 2 things, to my mind, are much better than a generally pretty rubbish ASU policy. An emergency fund and a decent insurance program, they are the foundation on which wealth is built for the long term. There's a lot more on that in my book, all right? And I'll be building on this inside Meaningful Academy, more on which in just a sec. So, it's up to you to protect yourself against a fluid job market. I think like a lot of what I'm talking about in this season, it's hard to know for sure what the impact of some of these challenges will be in the long term. All you can do really is to try and mitigate the impact of today's challenge, a fluid job market, by designing a diversified income, providing your own insurance against unforeseen events, right? That's all you can do, right? I hope that makes sense. I hope it's not too ranty, okay? There is tons of stuff in the back catalogue of Meaningful Money about building emergency funds and stuff like that. Read Dave Ramsey's The Total Money Makeover as well. That's a great place to start. And my own book, The Meaningful Money Handbook. There's some great stuff in there as well to help you with this stuff. But when you think about it, having a fluid job situation where your contract might change anytime, really what that would mean is a loss of an income. And so you need to protect against that specifically, all right? By having multiple sources of income ideally so that you're not dependent entirely on one, and also building up an emergency fund and taking insurance. So I hope that makes sense. Any comments or questions, as ever, you leave them at the show notes for this episode, and that's meaningfulmoney.tv/MF5 for Millennial Finance, episode 5. Brain went dead there in the middle. meaningfulmoney.tv/mf5. That's the place to leave any comments and questions. Okay, this is Ashers24 on iTunes. It says, top podcast. Thank you, Ashers24. This is an excellent podcast, and if you're not already listening to it, then I highly recommend you start. Pete gives some excellent advice that has made me more purposeful about how I use my money. Thanks to Pete, I feel I'm building a stable financial base for the future. I also eagerly await the Audible version of the Meaningful Money Handbook. Thank you for all your hard work, Pete. Ashers24, you'll be pleased to know that the Audible version is now out, probably because you left this review back in October time, something like that. That's got a few of these in reserve. So, yes, Meaningful Money Handbook is obviously available on Amazon, Kindle, and anywhere you can buy books, really. It's also on Audible. The audiobook is exclusive to Audible. Worth mentioning that. So if you're liking what you hear on this podcast, leave me a review wherever you listen to podcasts, okay? If you happen to be listening on an Apple device or some way of listening through iTunes or whatever, then go to meaningfulmoney.tv/iTunes and leave me a review that way. But wherever you listen, leave me a review. That would really, really help. Thank you very much in advance. Okay, we're working on something pretty special for those of you who are getting started with your personal finance journeys, really those who this season is aimed at, and it's called Meaningful Academy. And it ain't ready yet, okay? It's not open yet. Can't do anything with it yet. It's going to be a really powerful resource full of videos, tools, other resources to help put you on a firm financial foundation. We're looking for 50 founder members who are going to be willing to feedback about the content in the Academy, help me to shape it into something that you really, really want to use. So if that sounds like it might be interesting, head over to meaningfulacademy.com and register your interest. Now, you're not signing up to anything, you're not committing yourself. Just let me know that you want to be kept informed. That's all as we develop it. Hoping to open the doors in late March. Those founder members are going to get a massive, massive discount, probably 2/3 of what the thing will cost. Okay, so meaningfulacademy.com, register your interest there and I'll keep you posted. Before that, though, you can definitely join the Facebook group, which is well and truly open for business. That's a closed group, a secret group for fans of the show. So, you know, if anybody really looking to take their finances seriously, as I record this, there's nearly 400 people in the Facebook group. Loads of questions being asked every day, and the community is responding to them. It isn't just me doing all the work, which is awesome. Thank you very much, folks. So some great people in there answering questions and being super helpful. So definitely check it out. meaningfulmoney.tv/community is the place to go to do that, and that will redirect you to the Facebook group. Okay, next time I'm going to be talking about challenge number 5, high student debt. All right, this is one of the most misunderstood and I think over-exaggerated problems in my view. But I'm looking forward to getting into that next week. Okay, so remember, any questions on that or any questions generally, meaningfulmoney.tv/askpete. You can send me a voicemail there or send me an email or whatever, okay? And that's it, folks, for the Meaningful Money podcast. And I hope you're enjoying this season, and I hope you've enjoyed this session. Remember, any comments and questions on today's show specifically, meaningfulmoney.tv/session. No. meaningfulmoney.tv/MF5 for Millennial. For Millennial Finance 5. Phew. meaningfulmoney.tv/MF5. Thank you very much. I'll shut up now. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week.